Welcome back. You are listening to the Mari Mukonda Show on Salam Media. And as I promised earlier on, I said we're going to talk about e-cigarettes. And joining me on the line right now is Peter Yuko, who is the CEO of Tobacco, Alcohol, and Gambling Advisory Advocacy and Action Group. For short, it is TAG. So we're just going to say TAG. So e-cigarettes have become hugely popular in the past decade, but a rash of vaping-linked deaths and illnesses in the US is feeding caution about a product that's already banned in some places. Peter, thank you for joining me once again. How are you today?
Salaam alaikum, Mariam. I'm excellently well, thank you. Enjoying a rather warm winter's day in Johannesburg. And life is looking good, despite coronavirus and all the other things. We won't talk about that today. There's other important things.
Yeah, no, that chapter is on hold for as long as it's we're doing our part. Yeah, we're just going to keep it there right now. So let us talk about, okay, let us start this with a brief history of e-cigarettes and where did they come from?
Well, somebody got the wonderful idea of giving nicotine to smokers in the form of what they then called a vapor, and I'll discuss that in a little more detail in a moment, by igniting and heating the tobacco and the nicotine coming off in a gaseous form and then it being inhaled into the lungs. And that without burning it or combusting the tobacco, which is what causes the tar. Nicotine causes the addiction, and it's the tar from the combustion which causes things like lung cancer. Of course, there are many, many other chemicals, carcinogens, and poisons in tobacco smoke, but that's a slightly separate issue. The electronic cigarettes or electronic devices deliver nicotine in a gaseous form together with still many, many other chemicals, because the nicotine, for example, is generally dissolved in a chemical like glycol propylene, and that's harmful. So that's what happened. It was an alternative that somebody got to make money. The important thing to note now is that the formal cigarette manufacturers, all the well-known brands that you know are available at retail, are now the companies which own the major electronic nicotine delivery systems, as we call them, in the world. And there are dangers. I'll get into that. I just want to deal with this matter of, and you mentioned the word vaping. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Oh, I vape. Oh, hello. Let's go outside and vape. But it doesn't work like that, because when electronic devices started, it was a device that was about the length of a standard cigarette. It was white, and at the end of it, it had a little brown thing, beige thing that looked like the filter. When the smoker sucked on it, the batteries inside ignited or lit up a little electronic light-emitting diode in the front, which made it look as if the tobacco was glowing, as it does with a normal cigarette. And then what came out of your mouth was a slight puff of smoke. They called that vapor. The problem is, we think when we talk about vapor, we think and imagine water vapor. But this isn't water vapor. What the scientists are now calling it more correctly is an aerosol. And that's an aerosol containing not only the addictive nicotine, but all sorts of other poisons and cancer-causing chemicals. So we call them now, we prefer to call them electronic devices, electronic nicotine delivery systems, and I stay away from that term. And the truth is, what are you doing? Sucking on an electronic nicotine delivery system. That's the brief background. The current situation is far worse.
Now, why are they considered harmful to one's health? And are they as harmful as cigarettes, or are they worse?
Well, there are a lot of scientific reports which show that they are less harmful or not as harmful. The question is how much less and what constitutes harm. My some of the reports say, by the way, and we found out afterwards that many of the reports which showed that electronic devices are as up to 95% less harmful than combustible cigarettes, we found afterwards that many of those reports were authored by scientists who were paid by the tobacco industry. And
Wow.
there's many places and ways that you can interpret statistics. And if you only look at some of the statistics and half of the statistics, then you get false information. I heard a lovely analogy just an hour ago. Imagine if you have your feet in a very hot oven, it's at 200 degrees, and you have your head in the freezer, which is -3 degrees. Statistically, on average, you should be perfectly comfortable. In reality, your feet would be on fire and your head would be frozen. So statistics can be manipulated. Are they 95% less harmful, or are they 50% less harmful? You know what? I don't care. The point is they are harmful. When the industry says they are less harmful, I say, okay, but they are not harmless. Are they safer? Maybe a little, but they are not safe. The electronic devices deliver nicotine to your system. And even if they don't contain nicotine or allege, purport not to contain nicotine, it has been found that those devices and those fluids which they sell for the devices as not containing nicotine have actually been found to contain nicotine. So what happens, and here's the huge risk, young people are enticed by these exotic flavors, and they've got all sorts of wonderful names, like the names of fruits and candy floss. And it sounds all wonderful. It's very enticing to children and young people. So they get hold of these devices, even the non-nicotine ones, and the vapor, the aerosol, remember that name, it's an aerosol containing nicotine and poisons, get inhaled by these unsuspecting youth. There is nicotine, they get addicted, and now the devices don't give them enough of their drug, because the more you use a drug, the more you need. And so they eventually convert to combustible cigarettes. And the tobacco companies know this. There's research to indicate that many youth who would never in their life have started smoking were enticed by these exotic flavors and the so-called romance of electronic devices, became addicted, and then converted to combustible cigarettes, normal tobacco products and cigarettes. And that's the risk. And that's why the formal tobacco companies, the cigarette manufacturers, have bought electronic device manufacturers. It's a tragic situation. They know it, and more of our youth are getting addicted to nicotine. And to begin with, you know that smoking in itself is haram. And electronic devices, because they contain nicotine, are no less haram in my mind. I've never asked an imam about that, by the way, but my logic tells me that it has to be.
Let's hope the tobacco companies don't pay the imams as well. All right, now,
I would hope not.
do these e-cigarettes help those who are trying to quit smoking?
There is some evidence to show that some people have, in fact, stopped smoking by using electronic devices. However, there is also the placebo effect. You know, people have been given nicotine replacement therapy in trials, and a percentage of them have quit smoking. And a control group has been given medication or tablets with no nicotine in, and some of them quit smoking. So with these electronic devices, you have a placebo effect that some people will quit smoking. It depends on what you want to do. If you decide you want to quit, and you say, I'll quit with the use of electronic devices, and then you stay with your decision, yes, you're likely to quit. As a smoking cessation aid per se, as a recognized smoking cessation aid, there's no evidence to show, in fact, that electronic devices do work successfully. There's other stuff that you can do, nicotine replacement therapy, there are medications and drugs that you can take. You can speak to your doctor about that. The biggest single item, you know, the most way that people quit, Mariam, have you any idea what that is? It has to do with a bird. There's a clue. Cold turkey. When people make the decision, and it comes very often
Oh,
spontaneously, I quit. I'm now a non-smoker. And that's very important that you don't say, I'm trying to quit. Oh, I'll use an electronic device, or I'll use some kind of medication or some other therapy to try and quit. That doesn't work. Trying something like to quit always gives you an excuse. If you fail, you're allowed to fail almost, because you have an excuse by saying, you know what, I'll quit later. I try to quit now and I couldn't because it's COVID. It's very tense, and my job's at stake. I've got reduced income, so I'll try again after COVID. And then when the lockdown is lifted, you say, oh, okay, I'll try to quit, but you don't quite succeed because your excuse is, you know what I'll do is I'll quit during the December holidays. I have another excuse to try again. So make the decision. I quit. I am now a non-smoker. And then you just stay with that. Tomorrow you wake up and you think, well, perhaps you get that craving because you get withdrawal symptoms. It's like, I want a cigarette. My body and my brain is demanding my drug, and my drug of choice in this instance is nicotine. So you are tempted to have a cigarette or suck on an electronic device to get your nicotine fix. If you just remind yourself, I quit, I'm a non-smoker. Why would I want to smoke a cigarette? Why would I want to suck on an electronic device? I'm a non-smoker. And then you don't. And the craving goes away. The cravings get weaker and weaker as time goes by. And the timing between cravings gets longer and longer. And eventually the cravings die. And that's the trick. The way to kill your craving and to kill your addiction is to starve it to death. Never feed it with anything. I don't know if that answers part of your question, but there's no real clinical scientific evidence to show that these electronic devices are indeed successful widely and repeatedly in smoking cessation efforts. If it works for you, do it, but then stay with the decision to quit. Does that help you? Is there anything else that I can tell you or give you in answer to your questions? We seem to have lost a little connection here. I don't know if you can hear me, Miriam. I can't see you. Ah, you're back. Hello. I see you again.
I can tell you, yeah, connection on my side is not really great and hasn't been great for this week. But let's talk about the issue with children, because it's becoming younger and younger for kids. And when they see their older siblings vaping, and it seems like something that they also want to do. I mean, if they see it lying around there, then they're also going to grab it and going to try and vape. And some countries like Brazil, Singapore, and Thailand have banned these e-cigarettes, and for a good reason too. We're not sure if South Africa will also join the ban of these e-cigarettes, but how can we get our youth off of them, especially the younger ones?
The first thing is to ban flavoring. If you ban the devices is a separate issue, and certainly I will be encouraging the Minister of Health and his team to totally ban electronic devices. But the first step might be to ban all the flavors. I don't know if you have any idea how many flavors there are in electronic nicotine delivery systems and in electronic devices. Around the world, there are about 17,000 flavors. That's remarkable for me. That's a huge number of flavors. In South Africa, we estimate that there are about 6,000 different flavors. Get rid of those. Get rid of lollipop flavor and candy floss and all the exotic names that are used for those flavors. And the youth will reduce the use of electronic devices. The problem is the industry continues to promote it. So they have, remember I said right in the beginning, the devices emitted a little puff of something that came out of your mouth. That little aerosol was almost not visible. Now the electronic devices give out huge, dense plumes of smoke. And that smoke contains all those poisons and chemicals. And the fact that you can see it means it contains what the scientists call particulate matter. That means solid pieces of material. Now, they're very tiny. It's not like a stone that you can pick up in your hand and throw, or a pebble on the beach. They're very tiny, but they are solid and they get into your lungs. That's why you can see the smoke. That's the solid stuff that you can see. All those things are harmful, and they've done that because it now looks like, oh, you suck on this device, horrible sight, actually. I don't know what they think's nice about it, sucking on a device. It's not pretty. And then it gives out these dense plumes of thick smoke. And then they blow smoke rings with it, and they think it looks nice. In fact, it's horrible. Think about this. If you're at a barbecue and you have meat or anything on the fire, because you can grill vegetables and everything on an open fire, when the wind changes direction and blows the smoke into your face, you don't say, oh, it's smoke, and inhale it and say that's nice. You start coughing, you move away. Now, why does that smoke make you cough, and the electronic devices and cigarettes less so? They also make you cough, but they're less harmful or less aggravating or agitating to the back of the throat and all the glands in your throat and in your mouth, because they've been engineered that way by chemical additives to make them less caustic. But you move away from smoke. So why would young people, and I would like to believe that young people are actually thinking and excited, certainly with all this technology we have. There's lots of exciting stuff happening. There are social media platforms. There's changing technology. There's always new exciting games. So the young people today are thinking a lot. Why don't they think about what the electronic cigarette manufacturers, and that means the formal regular cigarette manufacturers, are doing to entice them to become smokers? And it's all the flavors, and it's making that dense smoke and creating some sort of imaginary, romantic, happy, good feeling about it. It isn't romantic and happy. It's death, it's disease, it's disability, it's a lot of harm. And so let's get rid of the flavors to start. I would like to, like the other countries you mentioned, ban the devices. They are harmful. They are not safe. And people have been known to die from them. Apart from those which explode, by the way, they've been known to explode. And people have got harmed, burned, parts of their faces blown off. But apart from that, it's an addictive product which will cause harm in the long term. For the young people, the frightening statistics are that they move on from electronic devices to smoking regular cigarettes. You know what the tobacco industry calls them? Because think about this, Mariam. Eventually, everybody will either die or quit smoking. That's a reality of life. If you quit smoking, you no longer buy cigarettes, and eventually you will die. Everybody dies. And so the tobacco companies, the cigarette manufacturers, will have no customers, zero people to buy their products. Now, they know that for all the people that die or stop smoking, they have to get new people to start smoking. Those new people are the young people. And you know what they call them? They have a term: replacement smokers. That's what they call them, replacement smokers, because they know their products kill their customers. It's the only commercially available consumer product which, if used as directed by the manufacturer, will kill more than half its users. It's the only product. You can buy tea and coffee and carrots and all sorts of things in the supermarket, and you use them as directed and you'll stay alive. You can buy a knife, and if you use it safely as directed by the manufacturer, you can cut your fruit and your food, and they're perfectly safe. With a tobacco product, if you use that cigarette as the manufacturers tell you to, that is, you put it in your mouth, you light a match or something, and you put a fire at the end of it, you suck it into your lungs and you inhale it, that's what they want you to do. More than 50% of those users will die. It's tragic. It's frightening. I don't even can hear in my voice. I mean, I'm laughing now more at myself because I'm I'm frightened about the people that these companies kill, because you don't die from smoking. I believe that's a euphemism. So, oh, if you smoke, you're likely to die. So no, the tobacco companies are making a product which kills their customers. They are mass
Yeah.
murderers. 43, 44,000 more or less in South Africa every year from smoking.
Wow. Mm.
Some of them from electronic devices on which they suck.
Now, if those numbers are not shocking people into quitting smoking, then I don't know what will. But something needs to be done about this ASAP before it becomes before it gets out of hand. I mean, it already has gotten out of hand, especially now with the COVID-19 and the ban of regular cigarettes. Now, everybody has been turning to other alternatives, hookah pipes and e-cigarettes. But unfortunately, time is not on our side. We're going to leave the conversation there. And I hope next time we can chat about other forms of cigarettes. And I'd like to know more about cigars, because people like to make it look as if it's also so glamorous. You need to, when you smoke a cigar, then you look like, you're a mafia boss, or you're somebody out there. So maybe we can
Rich and
talk on that a
successful,
little
but
bit
it's
more
not the
as well.
truth. I'm happy, Mariam, to
Yes.
come back onto your Salam Media at any time. Key message in the end is, if our little discussions can result in the saving of one life, then we've achieved an objective. If we can save many lives, that would
Mhm.
be wonderful. So I'm happy. Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate joining Salam Media and you, Mariam, and look forward to seeing you again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me once again, and have a lovely day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. That was Peter Yuko, the CEO of Tag. You can Google Tag if you'd like some more information. They are the tobacco, alcohol, and gambling advisory, advocacy, and action group. E-cigarettes, as glamorous as it looks, it is not something that is glamorous, especially to your health. And as Zunaid Hussein said in one of the comments, good advice. Now is the right time to cease smoking. With the ban of cigarettes, this ban should actually help those who want to quit smoking. And don't say things like, I'm going to quit after the lockdown. Make the decision to quit now, to quit today. If you saw this, if you received this advice, do share it with your family and friends and those who are looking to quit smoking. You can do it. Thank you for joining me. We'll be right back after the break.